Thank you, everybody, for joining us for the regular Board of Ed meeting. April 4th, 7:30, a few housekeeping items. In accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meeting Act, Chapter 231, PL 1975 announcement, I wish to announce that the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the School District of the Chathams Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, place thereof posted at the Board Administrative Offices, sent to the clerks of the Chatham Township and the Chatham Borough, the library, posted at the Library of the Chathams, the Daily Record, and the Star Ledger. Mr. DeCola, would you mind doing a roll call?
Sure. Mr. Gilfillan.
Here.
Mr. Arnick.
Here.
Ms. Ciccarelli. Ms. Clark.
Here.
Mr. Connors.
Here.
Ms. Cronin. Mr. Franz. Ms. Kenny.
Here.
And Ms. Weber.
Thank you. Would everybody, I apologize, would everybody stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Break. Thank you. I'm going to defer any board president comments until the end, unless we come up against the NCAA championship time. So I'm going to move this right along to Dr. LaSousa.
Thank you, Ms. Weber. I'll begin by just saying we dodged a bullet this morning with having all of our electricity in the building. So on the agenda tonight is the formal resolution to modify the school calendar to reflect the 2 days off before Memorial Day weekend. And once the board acts on that, then either this evening or sometime tomorrow, I can send a note to parents in the district so that they know that the change is official. Tonight is the night we selected to do our annual presentation on the graduates, the students who graduated last year, class of 2015. And we thought that to kind of introduce that report tonight, we would also acknowledge some of our finest CHS students who are in school this year and haven't gone on to graduate yet, but will. So I'm going to ask Mr. Groh to come up to give me an assist with the students who we are here to celebrate tonight, and then I will ask Mr. Walker to come up to provide us with the report of the graduates. So I'll start with Mr. Groh.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the Board of Education for taking the time to recognize 3 of our high school students who've achieved extraordinary academic success and recognition this year. First is our National Merit Scholar finalists. Back in October of 2014, our current seniors participated in the PSAT, which made them eligible for the National Merit Scholar Program. At that time, 1.5 million juniors and 22,000 high schools entered the National Merit Scholarship Program by also participating in the PSAT. Of the 1.5 million, 16,000 students were selected as semifinalists because of the score that they had achieved. And of the 16,000, 15,000 moved along as finalists and are eligible for 7,400 National Merit Scholarships that will be awarded this spring. We have 2 of those finalists here with us tonight. Before I announce them or introduce them, I also want to recognize them for being selected as candidates for the United States Presidential Scholars Program, which is based on their SAT scores. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Catherine Novak and Phoebe Nichols.
That's fantastic.
You can all drink the same water.
Well done.
That is I take longer to limp over. Yep. Hey, those kind of accomplishments take as long as you want.
Yeah. Photo, wait, parents, do you want photos?
Parents.
Parents?
Pictures?
This is a big deal.
Get involved.
This is huge.
Might get back in the picture.
I am going to yell at my kids tonight because of you 2 over and my wife.
Her fault, not yours, right?
Of course.
Whoever. Oh man, that's great news.
I would say that nobody likes to show off, ladies, but in this case, everybody loves to show off. Well done.
The second recognition is for one of our students who was, it was in the local paper earlier this year, but College Board informed me back in February that there were 4.5 million advanced placement exams taken by nearly 2.5 million public school students around the world. Of those 2.5 million students, only 322 students received a perfect score, which means they received every single possible point on their AP exam. Yulan Zhang is a junior at Chatham High School, was one of those 322 students to receive a perfect score. Yulan was one of 60,619 students who took the AP microeconomics exam and one of 54 students who earned a perfect score for that exam. So I would like to congratulate Yulan Zhang.
Wow.
Next stop.
Only at a 2.5 million?
Are you bothering to go to Congress or just skipping? Senior year.
So was
Yeah,
there one
really.
answer that you were unsure
You must be able to skip senior year for that. You should be able to skip.
Well done.
Well done.
Thank you.
Congratulations. That is.
Intelligence and get up and get out.
Great job, girls. Yes, so now I'll call Doug Walker to the center of the room. And girls and parents, you can leave. You don't have to stay for the rest of the meeting. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us tonight.
Thank you.
Congratulations again.
Congratulations. That is so great.
Oh, yeah, it's all in. Okay.
That's a tough act to follow, Mr.
It is a
Walker.
tough one, I know.
Good luck to you. Good luck.
Great for you.
That's why Darren's the boss. He went first.
He did.
Mine is shorter.
Yeah.
So good evening. I'm here to present a slideshow that's going to document the class of 2015, the report of the graduates. So first, when we took a look at the graduates from last year, we looked at percentage of students that attended post-secondary schools, and we had 94% of our students have gone on to four-year universities, and 5% to two-year, and then 1% other representing, in some cases, gap year or military service, things like that. Looking at this visually over time, going back for the last 3 years, I put this in a chart just to show that we've been pretty consistent in our percentiles in each of those categories. On this slide, and in the next few slides, I'm going to be talking about the various universities, and we use the Barron's rating when we look at where our kids go from the most competitive to the less non-competitive. And this slide in particular shows the GPA ranges of our graduating class and that attended each ranking of universities. And, interesting, you see that, as low as 2.89 in the highly competitive categories and moving down. Now I took a look at our class and I broke them up into thirds. And so the top third, which represents 94 students with a GPA of 3.85 or greater, and their four-year, two-year, and other college placements. The mid-third, again, 94 students with a GPA of 3.36 to 3.85, and this is their four-year, two-year, and other placements. And then our bottom third, which represented 95 students, the GPA of 0 to 3.36, and their 4-year, 2-year, and other placements. So then we looked at the Barron's categories, and we looked at from most competitive, highly competitive, very competitive, and where our students went in that class. And you can see it actually was an even split across the board, 28%, 28%, 28% in those three categories. It really did. So 84% have gone to the three highest tiers of competitiveness, 56% in the top two.
So if you could just repeat that, because again, I think this is the money slide. 84%, if you would, Mr. Walker.
Yeah, 84% of our students have attended the top three most competitive category universities in the country.
That's pretty impressive. I mean, that's quite an achievement.
When this slide looks at it just numerically, it gives you the data. So when we looked at each level of student, the top third, mid third, and the bottom third, this is number of students that attended each competitive category. So in our top third, 52 of the 95 went to the most competitive, and you can see down. So this is just a data set that represents the number of students in each category. This is graphically taking a look at that same data. So we have the top third and the competitive categories of each from a graphical standpoint. Just to give you an idea on the types of schools that we're referring to in each category, I gave some samples of schools that our students attend in each category. And so you can see these are schools that are in the most competitive category and highly competitive category.
Is the Georgetown a mistake in
Yeah,
that?
why would Georgetown be at the bottom of that row? Why would Villanova be somewhere else?
And Mr.
Good
Connors
question.
is an alum there, which I needed to poke him about that.
And then here are some schools in the very competitive and competitive category that our students have attended, just to give you an idea on the schools that we're referring to. When we looked at college placement by region, we see that still a strong percentage of our students are staying on the East Coast, about 61%. That number's been fairly consistent since 2012. 15% are New Jersey. We did see a little bit of an increase there in last year's class. And then the other areas of the country are represented below. And when we refer to the East and the Southwest, the states that we're referring to are listed at the bottom. Took a look at public versus private, and those numbers again remain fairly consistent going back from 2012, with 40% of our students attending public and 60% attending private. So a little bit of an upward trend in the public from 2012.
Tuition has something to do with it.
I would imagine it does, absolutely, yes. So I took a look at the class of 2015 and just did some tallying, and out of that class we had 2,358 college applications that were submitted. Out of that, there were 1,277 acceptances, and you can see 455 were early action, 45 were early decision. We're definitely seeing an increase in acceptances, early action. You know, what the research is showing, what I'm reading, is that the schools are having a hard time. Their algorithms aren't working in terms of their yield for their acceptances. Because of the number of applications they're receiving, they're having a hard time predicting their acceptances. So we're seeing more and more schools accept kids early action, early decision, so they have a better understanding of their yield moving forward. Our students in the class of 2015 had 8.27 average applications per student, with an average acceptance rate of 4.48. That ranged from kids who applied to 1 to 27 schools with the high. 55% was the average acceptance of total applications. We had about 7 students in the 20 to 27 range. If we take them out, that 55% jumps closer to about 59%.
Well, that's interesting. Can I make a comment on the 55%?
Sure.
So, generally speaking, if the students are being guided, or do a handful of reach schools, a handful of good matches. If I'm using the wrong terminology, I apologize. And then a third of maybe the less competitive, or what used to be called the safety school. So if that guidance is fairly accurate, and we're guiding our students to the right reaches and the right matches and the right safeties, shouldn't that acceptance be a little bit higher?
I think it definitely should. I think part of it, when we looked at the number of applications too, we had 105 students that applied to between 10 and 20 universities. So I think at some point their counselors are making recommendations at certain levels, but I think there are applications that go on that are just beyond the recommendations.
Okay.
And I think that's part of the reason for it, the sheer number. I think kids are applying to some more reaches than maybe recommended.
I think it's worth a look to see, you know, based on the kids that are applying, did they think they were matches and didn't get in, and maybe maybe some guidance. This is an unusual class, I'm hearing all the acceptances and the rejections and the wait lists, and, you know, some of the kids had less options because they thought they were matches or safeties, and maybe they didn't. And again, it depends on the pool, depends on the particular class, there's probably a million factors. But I just thought it was maybe something to, you know, to take a look at. But
Yeah, you know, I did look at one piece of it, and I noticed that between students who applied to 2 to 6 colleges had a 73% acceptance rate. Students who applied to 7 to 10 had a 62%, and 11 plus had a 52%. So
Okay.
there was a
So there's a direct
correlation.
proportion.
To your point.
Would you say, though, I mean, it seems like with the common application, it's just easier to apply. So if you're kind of on and you're there and everything's loaded and they'll take the application, it probably increases the chance that kids might apply to more schools. Just by
Absolutely.
the sheer ease of just pressing send.
Seeing a significant number of increase in applications across the board, hence why we see more early decision, early action. The schools are receiving so many applicants that they're having a hard time figuring out who's actually going to attend. Mm-hmm. You're welcome.
thank you very much.
So then we looked at some of our assessment scores from that class. Last year, we saw a significant jump in the number of AP exams. That was partially related to some new AP courses, in particular the AP Economics course, because the AP Economics course is 2 exams of macro and micro, and we filled a full schedule of sections of that course. So we saw a jump there in that. So we had about 1,101 exams, and that represented 515 students in the school. Jump ahead, okay. Yep. We also looked at our AP Scholar designations, and we had the most significant increase here was in the AP Scholar with honors category, jumping from 36 to 52. And a description of each of the AP Scholar distinctions are listed here. Wow. 60 to 86 was a significant jump as well.
On 5 or more exams, wow. Okay. That's a lot of bright kids.
A lot of pressure.
Work.
Everyone,
Thank-
yep.
Yes, thank you.
And then we looked at the percentage of students scoring a 3 or higher on our AP exams, and we looked at Chatham High School, New Jersey, and Global, and this is a graphical representation of that. And we've remained pretty consistent since 2011. Mean SAT scores for the class of 2015, again, looking at Chatham, New Jersey, and national. Subject tests, we had 98 students that took subject tests. They represented 42% of our SAT takers at CHS versus an average of 16% in New Jersey. We are seeing a decline in subject tests. Not as many students are taking them. Many schools are actually looking for them as much, especially with the test optional movement moving forward now. So that number hasn't grown. This is the first year that we've seen nationally that the ACT has also overtook the SAT in terms of number of test takers across the country. So we're seeing a general decline in the SAT as well. Part of that, I think, is because of the revised SAT that we had in March. I think there's a fear of what that test was going to look like, how is it going to be read by schools. So the ACT took a big jump this year. But before I get to the ACT, we do have our scores on the subject area tests of SAT. And again, the first column, it looks at CHS, New Jersey, and national in the areas where we had subject tests taken.
It's hard to tell the codes.
Yeah.
Chatham the first?
Chatham's the first bar, New Jersey's the middle bar, and nationally is the third bar in each group.
Math level 2.
Which one is the 61? Is that the bio?
Bio, yeah,
Economy?
yeah. Yeah. ACT for the class of 2015, we broke down the four scored areas. And again, the first column is CHS, the second column is New Jersey, and the third column is national, out of a scale score of a max score of 36. And that was the data and reports. Is there any questions that you have regarding it? Yes.
I have another question.
Sure.
On the applications and where the kids are applying to, is there any effort to, there's 300 kids generally speaking, and they're all applying to a lot of the same schools, so they're sort of stepping on each other a little bit. And is there any effort on, maybe the school's part to introduce additional schools or build relationships with schools that we maybe didn't send any students to, or maybe students that didn't get in to that particular school for that, maybe reach out and get a better understanding on other, what criteria we're not hitting to get into, say, for example, at Georgetown, not that we want to send our whole crew there, but, just a little bit reaching out to schools either to build a relationship where one doesn't exist, or understanding why maybe, one of our students did or didn't, get in, and reaching out and spreading that number out a little bit more across the country.
Yeah, we've been actually looking at that. One of the things that I worked with Dr. LaSousse on and we uncovered was we looked at the competitive categories and we said, okay, in the most competitive category, we had at least one student from Chatham High School apply to every single school in that category. In the highly competitive category, 42% of the schools in that category, not one student from Chatham High School had applied to. So we started to realize that our students are applying on top of each other to the other 60% of those schools. So we immediately, we started this around October of last year, so it was a little bit late in the game, and we'll start it again this year, is we started to do highlight the schools that are in that 40% category that would be a competitive fit for our students. And so we're making sure we're bringing more of those schools in for visits. We're putting out it's about a bi-weekly newsletter that highlights some of these schools and tells you when they're coming to visit and what are some of the positives of those schools that are going out to parents and to students to assist in getting those schools on your radar. And so that's part of the work that we're doing to increase that.
Okay, excellent.
I would say too, just, is it Megan Beatty, is that her name? That she has done, I thought, a great job in reaching out and bringing in a lot of new schools also. And even I think our guidance counselor, I remember when we were going through it, was definitely making that point, that everybody's applying to Georgetown, everybody's applying to Villanova. It's unfortunate, just kids and parents all want their kids to go to these schools. But I think that I've been very impressed with the work that the guidance counselors have been doing, and trying to enlighten,
Sure.
the kids to other.
And it's going to take years to change a culture, but I think we need to start.
We're making it a focus on all of our conferences. We're really trying to use the college match tool and really highlight some of the other schools that come up in Naviance that are a good fit. And, our counselors are starting to go on some more tours too to visit these schools and bring back some specific highlights. And they're preparing PowerPoint presentations that they're reviewing with all the counselors when they come back to give talking points on some of these schools as we increase them.
Yeah, because it's great for the kids, because if it's difficult enough to get into those schools that all the Chatham kids apply to, it's even more difficult when they're competitors that person you see next to them.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's a ton of great schools out there,
There is, yeah.
most notably Georgetown.
Do we ever, from a yardstick perspective, compare ourselves to other, I know we're comparing ourselves to other public schools in New Jersey, but do we have stats to compare ourselves to Del Barton, to Pingree, to Poly Prep, to see how our students are doing versus these elite private schools?
I haven't actually pulled that data in terms of comparison chart. It's something that could be done from the profiles that they release.
I wonder if that data is out there, because I mean, you watch the presentation you just put on, and you totally get why our real estate holds value like it does in Chatham. The stats are amazing.
Yeah, I think that's something to definitely take a look at. We do try to, I do look at profiles from different schools and try to see where we pair up from time to time, but I focus even more on the public schools that are in our competitive category. But
knowing that most of the parents in Chatham, we're certainly competitive parents. We're focusing on the private schools as well. We want to beat them all.
I've certainly looked at the private schools, like Del Barton and Pingree, because they publish this stuff on their websites. It's easy to find. I don't know how easy it is to compare the data, and it's sometimes hard to tell how many kids are going to a certain school or how few kids are going to a certain school. But it's something we look at, like Doug said, our focus this year, I think in large part, has been trying to diversify the types of institutions that we're hoping are appealing to our students, so they're not climbing all over each other when they're applying to the same schools in the Northeast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I
You're
just ask
welcome.
one more question?
Sure.
Is there a way, we get this data as to where our students are going ultimately in the end, but to track the acceptances? Because oftentimes students make choices, whether they're financial, for whatever reason, they may be accepted to a school that is more competitive, but opt not to go to that school. Is there a way to track that information just for our own purposes to see, what are the amount of acceptances coming into Chatham?
Yeah, we actually have that data, so it's in Naviance, and actually, we did put it
Okay.
in the school profile this year, too. The last page, it lists all the universities and number of acceptances.
2015.
Yes, and that's tracked over time in our Naviance system, and I can pull data different ways.
Those are the number of acceptances, not where they went, right? Not where they happen to choose, right?
Both, they're there. I have a number of acceptances is what's on the profile. Those are just acceptances, not matriculation.
Got it.
Thank you.
One thing I have is, and I'm be very difficult to gather the information, is not only is where the kids are graduating from. I mean, this is heavy, it's front-loaded to where they're getting in.
Yes.
And I understand the only way you're going to know that if the student takes the time to call back and say, by the way, I graduated from here or what have you, but I think it would be helpful for other students the ones coming up, to see, all right, all these kids went to these schools, how many of them actually stayed? They could have left for a whole host of reasons.
Sure.
One of it may be it's just not a good fit, so I think if we could get that information. Now, I know it's very difficult.
But it's good information. I'm very interested in that information as well.
But it's only as good as people responding.
Yes.
But I think that would be helpful to not only see where they started, but to see where they finished.
Yeah, we're trying to, I'm working to try to figure out a better way to do alumni tracking. There's an alumni tracking system in Naviance as well, but I think that data is very interesting. I mean, we know that we have kids that are still enrolled 18 months after graduating. We've ranked number one in that category in the county before, but where are they actually graduating from is what I'd like to know that too.
We're supposed to be getting that. That's supposed to be coming to us from the National Clearinghouse, which is a collection of almost every college and university in the country. That's how we get the 16 months post-graduation rate or post-secondary enrollment rate that the state includes on the performance reports, but we haven't been notified yet when we're going to be able to really dig into that kind of stuff.
Will that report give names of students?
To us, it's supposed to.
Okay.
But that has not happened yet. They've only taken it as far as telling us in NJ Smart what percentage of our students that enrolled in a four-year college after graduation is still there 16 months later.
What about like the first year? I've been shocked at my daughter's grade, how many kids the first year have, subsequently dropped out of their colleges. The first year is the hardest year, but is that something that's tracked?
That's what we get. That's the number that we get right now.
You do get to see how many kids.
16 months later, and then I think they upload it again every year thereafter. So right now, I think if we go in, we can get maybe 2011 and 2012. I don't know if they put up 2013 yet. So they're a couple years behind, but we are looking at that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Walker.
That's impressive.
Dr. LaSousa, did you have any additional items you'd like to report out on?
No, I don't think so. Am I forgetting one?
Oh, no, I wasn't sure if you were going to talk about the couple of the retirements or...
Thank you. Well, we'll, of course, acknowledge Andy Elwell, who's I don't want to say institution, but certainly a longstanding member of the Washington Avenue School staff and the Chatham community at large, actually. We'll miss her. She's done a terrific job with some of our youngest students in the district. And Patty McKenzie is our assistant to the business administrator. She also has really done a great job over the course of the past 5 or so years she's been working with us.
All right, thank you. Yeah, certainly two people have made an impact for their time here. We're going to miss them, but certainly wish them well in the retirement on their lake house. Peter, any additional?
Yes.
Oh,
The only thing I'd like to add is as an update on the Washington driveway, as a result of the meeting that a few of the board members and myself had on March 24th, The district and the borough will be entering into a joint service agreement for the borough to perform project work at Washington to expand the driveway and install the new parking lot that we've needed for quite a long time for a maximum cost to the district of $110,000. So this is a definite step in the right direction to shared services and utilizing of resources and saving taxpayer funds.
Yeah,
So
no, that's great.
hats off to everyone who endured along with me, fighting and persevering and getting this done. So thank the board members that have chimed in.
Thank you very much, Peter, and thank you to the borough for coming up with the joint agreement. That really is a savings for everybody. Any additional items, Peter?
No, that's it for me.
Does anybody have any questions for either Dr. LaSousa or Mr. DeQuilla? No? Okay, very good. Moving on. Committee reports, personnel, Ms. Clark?
Personnel met right prior to this meeting tonight, and we just got an update on the Washington Avenue search for the principal replacement there. We also discussed phase-in at central office as for the Genesis software system to replace an existing system, and we briefly discussed some updated benefit options for staff that will be discussed later. So that was
Very
it.
good. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Clark or Ms. Grant? Nope, seeing none. Moving on to curriculum, Ms. Kenny?
Curriculum has not met since the last meeting.
Excellent. Moving on to finance and facilities, we just met.
Yes, finance facility, as Ms. Weber said, just met. We discussed two topics. One, Mr. DeQuilla has already touched on, which is the Washington Avenue driveway update. The second is continued follow-up on our outlook for the projected tax increase for the budget for 2016-17. Right now, it appears as though that the guidance we should be giving the full board is around 2.35% for a tax increase for next year. That's based around a 15% health care increase as we potentially switch plans from Horizon over to Aetna. So there's a couple things that the Finance Committee is still discussing, potentially to give and take in terms of potential positions. We're still waiting to analyze and see whether or not we get things such as breakage that we usually get in the past. There tends to be some late retirements that can come in, allow us to have some flexibility in terms of our hiring needs for the following school year. And we actually will have to vote on this at the next board meeting?
May 2nd.
May 2nd board meeting. We'll have to make our final decision. And our next meeting is? May 2nd? That's the next one? No, I mean,
Next finance
meeting is when? Never mind.
Okay.
I'm sorry, when's that?
They're looking it up. But we have to vote on the budget at the next public board meeting,
Public board
which May 2nd. For right now, your recommendation is the 2.35.
Is our, guidance. You know,
Guidance,
unless something-
okay.
Unless something
Right,
extraordinary
shifts.
comes in, yes.
Okay, understood. Which hasn't veered too greatly from the presentations we've been doing. Does anybody have any questions for either Mr. Gilfillan, Dr. LaSousa, Mr. DeQuilla? No? Okay. Moving on to policy and planning. Mr. Franz is not here, but he did email me his report, which is to say the Policy and Planning Committee has not met since our last meeting. Moving on to the liaison reports. Mr. Connors for the borough.
Nothing to report in terms of Board of Education. However, I would like to applaud the borough for its quick response to the weather conditions this weekend. They were, with a lot of the power outages due to the high winds, from my understanding, they did a pretty decent job in getting everything up and running. So I applaud the borough for that.
Yeah, very good. Excellent. Thank you. Chatham Township, Ms. Clark.
Nothing to report from the township.
Athletic boosters, back to you, Mr. Connors.
I have not met. They are meeting tomorrow. However, I cannot go to tomorrow because I have a business meeting. So if someone would like to attend the booster meeting,
Okay. And could you remind me, is that 7 or 7:30?
at 7 o'clock
Seven.
at the library multimedia purpose room in high school.
Okay, thank you. Music and theater boosters.
Oh, I'm sorry. Does that mean you're going to go?
I'll try to, yeah. Yeah, for sure. You'll give Jack a ride home from lacrosse, right?
I'll do the booster thing next one.
That's right. He can Uber home. Music and Theater Boosters Report. I just wanted to remind everybody about the Chatham High School recital, the honors recital, which will take place on this Thursday, April 7th, in the Chatham High School Auditorium. It's a phenomenal show. These kids have worked all year on very difficult and very complex pieces, and these are kids that have already played phenomenal concert hall. So it's a free concert. It's April 7th in the high school auditorium. You can stop in for all or part of it. You will not be disappointed. In addition to that, 34 members of the Chatham High School Chorus will be performing at the historic Cathedral Basilica at Sacred Heart in Newark on Sunday, April 17th, part of the New Jersey Festival, Chorus Festival. It's $15 a ticket. They'll be selling them at the door, and the concert begins at 4 p.m. It's a phenomenal venue if you've never been to it, and it's really quite a place to visit. And the final item I have is the 5th annual Chatham Middle School Jazz in the Middle will take place on Thursday, April 21st. It's in the Chatham Middle School Auditorium. It begins at 4:30. The CMS Jazz is under the direction of Christy Spriggs, and they will host 9 middle school jazz bands. 9 separate bands. Each will perform and be adjudicated during their performance. The evening will end with a performance from an outside group, the Scotch Plains Moonglowers. I'm mostly promoting the Chatham Middle School band, the 9 jazz people. But thank you for that. Any questions? No questions? Excellent. Chatham Education Foundation, big night on Friday.
Yes, CEF held its celebration on Friday evening, and it was a success. As part of the fundraiser, they launched the Giving Tree initiative, focused on raising funds for innovative, learner-friendly classroom furniture and equipment. Attendees purchased leaves on the Giving Tree, which represents the funds they donated for this initiative. CEF will continue to fundraise for the initiative for the innovative, learner-friendly classrooms, along with their regular annual fund appeals. I wasn't able to attend. Did you have a good time?
Michelle and I attended. It was great. It was really, I loved the format. You know, it was good, flowing from the bar. The band was excellent.
Okay.
They had a nice array of silent auctions. I think somebody outbid me on my silent auction, but I should have swung back and checked. But yeah, I thought it was a really, really nice affair.
It was pretty funny.
I don't think I got to taste the scotch in the scotch tasting, but I missed that part. A lot of the administrators were there.
And a lot of teachers.
Yeah, tons of teachers, tons of, you had a full table. It was standing room only at your table, the administrators' table, so thank you for also attending. But it was a great event. Thank you, Lotta. I appreciate it. Moving on to recreation, Mr. Gilfillan.
Nothing to report.
They haven't met, have they?
No.
Okay, very good. PTO District Cabinet, Ms. Cronin?
We meet tomorrow, 12.
Okay, very good. I'm going to move along and make a motion to approve the minutes of the March 21st public meeting.
Second.
Peter, who has to abstain from that?
Me.
Just Matt? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Aye.
There we go. Very good, thank you. We have our first opportunity for public commentary. We will also have another opportunity at the end of the meeting after we go through the regular agenda. If you wouldn't mind, please sign in, and if you would introduce yourself, that would be great.
Thank you. I signed in previously. My name is Ronald Nicola. I live at 25 Rowan Road in Chatham Borough, which is behind the Haas Field. Rowan Road is east of the Haas Field in terms of location. We've been there about 30 years, and my main concern, quite frankly, is the sand pit for the volleyball, sand volleyball pit, which was recently installed. I think one of the scouts was involved with the program, which I think is very commendable. I'm not complaining about that. I'm mainly concerned about the time usage, and I spoke with Mr. DeQuilla earlier in the week. He mentioned about coming to the meeting tonight. Over the course of time, the field, the Haas Field, has obviously changed. It used to be a gravel track, then it became the soccer field, and then other things have occurred after that, which was the softball field was moved closer to Rowan Road. The batting cages were put in a couple years ago, and then the, I'll call it the sand pit or the volleyball pit, was installed last year. Now, over the course of time, probably the last couple of years, Mr. DeQuell and I have gone back and forth regarding the use of the batting cages. And at some point in time, I think last year or the year before, a compromise was reached where so I'm assuming the Board of Education, put up some small signs on the batting cage, basically saying usage would be from 3 to 7 p.m. during the week, and on the weekends it would be 10 to 5 on Saturday and 12 to 5 on Sunday. The reason being, on the weekends, people tend to stay in a little bit more maybe on Saturday or Sunday. Sundays, people go to church or whatever, or enjoy their backyard. And then the end of the day, on Saturday and Sunday, people typically have a picnic or something in the backyard, which we try to do as well as our neighbors. So the compromise was reached, and there was a small sign put on the batting cages, about 1 foot by 18 inches. It's very clear. I have it on my cell phone. There's three or four of them around the cage, and it specifically mentions the hours. And I would say it's been honored generally very well. I was over there one time confronting one person, but we had a discussion. We pointed out that the board wanted to do this, and they put up the signs. What I'd like to do is have a similar type of sign put on the post for the volleyball. What's happened over the course of time since the volleyball sand area was installed is that the kids are playing there. They're probably juniors, they're probably middle school, maybe they're high school. I haven't seen any adults over there. I don't know that it's restricted in any way, but anyway. And they have, last year when it was installed, many times the hours were way into the evening. Of course, it's later. The sun is out later. We know that. It's 8 o'clock or so. But going beyond that, till 9 o'clock, whatever, and the vocabulary has been horrendous. Terrible vocabulary. All the swear words you can think of. I mean, they're jumping around and having fun. I understand that. But the vocabulary has been outrageous. Now, I spoke to Mr. DeQuala the other day, and what I'd like to do is suggest that the same time frame be posted on that, one of the two poles there for the volleyball net, that indicates usage Monday through Friday, 3 to 7, Saturday, 10 to 5, and Sunday, 12 to 5. It's worked out well. Now, some people might say, well, it's a sand pit, it's different than a batting cage, etc. But at the same time, the residents, we're literally one house over from being directly behind the sand pit. We can hear everything that's going on. I'm sure our neighbors can too. I didn't do a canvas because I didn't think I needed to do that. I'm asking you, for you as a board, to consider, maybe with the Recreation Committee or your Facilities Committee, I'm not asking for it to be done tonight. I'm asking you to consider a similar type of arrangement to the sign that's on the batting cage nets that specifically gives some time frame. Now, when summertime comes, generally people are not going to be playing in the sun. I mean, they have to watch out for their health, et cetera, et cetera. I'm more concerned about the evening than anything else, and that is enjoying our backyard. The noise is just unbelievable when they're out there way past a normal, say, for example, I'll say 7 dinner time, into 8 and 9 o'clock. And I think this is not an unreasonable request, and I'm asking whichever committee would be appropriate for, maybe one or two committees, Facility Committee or the Recreation Committee, however that works out. I'm just asking you to consider my request on behalf of myself, my family, and our neighbors to put a little bit of a time frame on there. It makes more sense. The other thing I think that's happening, I can't say for sure, is that there's a lot of beer cans floating around that end of town on that part of the field. Now, I can't say that the kids are doing the volleyball are the same ones that leave 30 can boxes of empty beer cans near the end of the field, partially on the girls' softball field. I mentioned that to Mr. DeQuala the other day, and I think they've made an effort to clean it up. Not all of it was by the softball field. There was some on the regular field. A lot of it was in that stream, that culvert that comes out there, which is a hanging point. I can't say that those kids playing volleyball are the ones that are doing it, but having it later at night, dark, et cetera, it certainly is conducive to that being a source of the beer cans. I also reported it to the police and the DPW. I'm more concerned about the general rule of the sand pit.
Understood. Very good.
Okay?
Okay.
I'd like your consideration in that regard.
Oh, sure thing. Thank you very much for sharing that.
Okay.
That will probably go to the Finance and Facility Committee.
Well, we handled it in policy.
Oh, okay.
I was the one that did the baseball
All right.
sign.
Way to punt, to fill.
So,
Sold to you.
What was the hours you came up with?
well, because we had talked to some of the neighbors and Peter and.
Can we talk about it in committee?
Yeah, so policy?
Yes, that'd be great. Thank you, I appreciate it. Thank you for coming out tonight. Thank you for sharing your concerns.
I appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Have a great evening.
Thank you, sir.
Again, we'll have another opportunity at the end of the meeting, after we go through the regular agenda for additional public commentary. Oh, Mr. Devlin, I'm sorry, I didn't see you in line there. Probably.
Hello. Well, I want to begin by thanking the board for their insight
I'm
into...
sorry, Jane, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We all know who you are, but
Jane Devlin.
Thank you.
Chatham Township. So I do again want to begin by thanking the board for their insight into suggesting we broaden our students and their parents' perspective about college choices. And it's hard to follow Mr. Walker's presentation by what I have to say, because who wouldn't be proud of the statistics he presented? But still, I have to remind about Dr. LaSousa's presentation at the Future Focus series. And I also have to say, if the kids are achieving so much by SAT scores and AP grades, let's reward them by a rest. I want to clarify some points I brought up at the board meeting of March 7th. I asked administration and the board to continue to keep on the table both the issue of homework and student stress or stressors. In stating I was the lone voice who comes before the board in open forum, I merely meant just because other special interest groups, for example STEM or full-day kindergarten or even referendum oppositions in the past, have come out at greater numbers, the lack of entourage on my part shouldn't make homework or student stress any less urgent or relevant. Sometimes whoever comes out in large numbers or is the loudest gets the most public attention or publicity, but that's not what I'm here for. I just want to advocate. But I do want to clarify and emphasize, when I said on March 7th I was the lone person bringing up these topics, this should not be misconstrued that I think administration or the board has been passive on these issues. To the contrary, Dr. LaSousa especially has been in the forefront of addressing student wellness in the district, both by philosophy and initiatives he rolled out, especially some programs at the K through 8 levels. And that's great, especially if initiatives start at the lower grades, because eventually the culture changes. However, I still assert more needs to be done or could be done at the high school level, particularly because some high school kids wrongly choose to cope with fatigue, stress, overwork in maladaptive or unhealthy ways, such as by alcohol, drugs, cutting, or food disorders. So towards the goal of maybe doing more at the high school level, may I inquire if the Future Focus presentation Dr. LaSousa gave could be repeated? Although the presentation was open to all and the video is available, perhaps there is a way to increase the amount of parents who hear the message, maybe at a back-to-school night next year or a college night. Also, can parts of that talk, if not all of it, be presented to our high schoolers, maybe at an assembly or a health class? Particularly compelling was the section about colleges. 10th graders may not be too young to benefit from that perspective. Also, Dr. LaSousa cited some books in his talk. Could the district consider inviting one or more of those authors to be a guest speaker at next year's Future Focus Forum? What else could be done to lighten the high school load without startling folks into thinking the school district is suddenly compromising excellence. Logically, the more rested, less stressed, less overworked, and less push a person is, then the more productive, creative, and fortified to deal with conflicts as well as problem solving they become. We should think of that for the students. And may I remind in closing the obvious. Spring break coming up is the next ideal opportunity to have a homework-free period for all grades K through 12. Unfortunately, that didn't happen at Easter holiday. Teachers gave homework, and that is their right, and while not singling out any particular subject, I do really have to ask respectfully how important was a math assignment or world language or any assignment on a Good Friday Easter weekend. I'm not sure if the teachers are always getting the message that homework needn't always be mandatory and may not always be the automatic best practice. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Devlin. Any additional public commentary? Come on aboard.
Can I make a very quick comment?
Sure.
She referenced Dr. Lasuz's presentation on stress. Perhaps Dr. Lasuz's presentation on stress was referenced. Perhaps it would be a good idea for members of the press here, Tappan and Chatham, et cetera, to get a copy of that presentation or that video and put it out in the public eye, and I'm sure it'll get a lot of eyeballs that way as well.
Thanks, Sal. It is posted it's posted on our website.
It is posted on our website, and I'm doing a version of it at the CMS PTO meeting in next month. But certainly I can look into making a tour and trying to get in the schools and in front of parents as much as I can.
Excellent. Thank you. Very good. Mrs. Hilsenrath?
Yes, Libby Hilsenrath, Chatham Borough. I just wanted to ask about the park testing. My son's in 6th grade, and I think there's a bit of confusion between parents and students as to whether they're required to take the park tests. He'll be a 2022 graduate. He was told by his English teacher that he has to take the park test, and I was told by the principal that he doesn't. So I'm trying to clarify it for myself and for other people. Is it required as a 6th grader to take the park test? My understanding and my answer from the CMS principal was it's not required as long as you take these other tests and you pass a certain score. Is that right or not?
Sousa, could you answer that? Or Karen, whichever.
I think the short answer is the Department of Education of the state of New Jersey requires that we administer the test to any student who is in attendance the day that we give the tests.
Right.
Having said that, as has always been the case, we can't force a student to take the test. So if a student is either absent or a student is in school but says, I'm not taking that test, we can't hold the kid's hand and make the kid take the test. In terms of the graduation requirements, there are alternative ways to satisfy the graduation requirement for those students who are in the class of 2020, is it? Or 2021? Or...
Well, there's guidance on 2016, 2017, 2018, and 2019.
Okay, right. So anyone who graduates before 2020, the state has informed us that they can meet the graduation requirement in an alternative way.
Right.
They have not yet given us a very clear picture, a definitive answer about how to meet the graduation requirement after 2019. However, there's never been a time when a 6th or 7th grade test was required for graduation
So why
from high school.
Okay, I think that was my understanding. But why would a teacher tell a group of an English teacher tell a group of students in 6th grade, you're required to take the park test?
Well, that's the first I'm hearing about that. I'd have to look into that further and find out what was said. The teacher may have said what I just said, that the state requires you to take the test, and that could have been heard in a different way by students. But If you contact it sounds like you already spoke with the principal, Ms. Jaworski. If you let her know who the teacher was and
No,
she can look into it.
no, she said today was the deadline to refuse, or to say if you didn't want to take that, which I answered her.
Okay.
But I think the kids and a lot of parents are confused as to whether they really have to take it, from 6th to 8th grade. I've heard it from a lot of parents. I just wanted to bring it up and see, there may be some other people here who want to
Thank you.
speak to it. But the kids are confused, so thank you.
Thank
I
you.
think from the middle school, because I have a student in the middle school too, the email came out saying today was for planning purposes, but you can, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, a parent can opt their child out at any point throughout the continuum, right? Ideally for planning purposes, it was just to know which students will be, but
Right.
it is.
I understand that, but I'm just passing on that there's a lot of parents.
No, I understand that. I'm just
Yeah.
trying to get, if we're trying to get accurate information out, I think in terms of Mr. Gahorski's email, it was, in terms of planning purposes, we would like to know who's in, who's out. But in terms of the deadline,
Correct, there
you
is no
can't say to
deadline.
someone, you can't opt
Correct.
out.
That's right.
If that's the prerogative of the parent.
Well, I was told you could opt out up until the day of the test.
I think
Correct.
that is the case. That's the case.
Well,
Yeah.
and just most recently at a DOE presentation, the term opt-out, they were
They don't
pretty adamant
recognize,
about
they don't
us.
recognize the term
They don't
opt-out.
recognize it's a refusal.
Yeah.
So a child can refuse up to the moment when he or she would begin to assess at that point.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Good evening, Bill Heap, Chatham Borough.
Good evening, Mr. Heath.
I'm not here to give you any abuse tonight.
You're not.
Just here to make a couple of comments on the presentation, the college presentation. I've been interviewing students who have been applying to Georgetown for the past 35 years, 25 years in Morris County. There was a question as to how we compare to the private schools. I have seen kids from every school in this neighborhood, and I will tell you that if you compare apples to apples, that is probably the top 20 or 25% of students in any school, that the private schools, academically speaking, offered no advantages that I can see over Chatham High School. Now, parents might want to make a choice as to a single-sex education or religious education. That's an important decision. But academically speaking, I don't see any difference at all. The second comment would be with regard to the number of applications. It has gotten completely out of hand, and this is all parent-driven. When I see a kid who comes in and tells me that they love Georgetown, and in the very next breath they tell me that they've applied to 18 other schools, it is hard for me to take them seriously. So a tip for all you parents who are not watching the basketball game right now, I guess our ratings are going to be pretty low this week. You really ought to encourage your kids to become more focused. There is no reason to apply to more than a half a dozen, maybe 8 schools tops, at least from my humble perspective, anyway. So I just wanted to throw that in there and let you know that especially for those parents who are concerned about the private schools, there is no advantage. Okay.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Mr. Heath. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your expert.
Appreciate that. Okay, we're going to move on to the regular agenda now. Again, there's another opportunity at the end of the meeting for additional public commentary if something sparks your interest during the regular agenda. We're going to move on to personnel first. Ms. Clark, if you wouldn't mind moving those items, including the addendum.
Yes, everyone should have just gotten the addendum about a second ago, so if you want to take a look. I move action items A1 through 12, and addendum A12 is an addition, just
Is
an
it,
addition to 12.
Okay,
Okay, so it's not a separate item.
got it.
Got it?
We're adding to the existing 12.
Exactly, it's just one more line item, so take a look and,
Oh, got it. So the chart's just going to be expanded?
Yep.
Got it, by one
Okay.
row. Okay. You get to go to beautiful downtown Newark, Delaware, Ms. Grant. Excellent. Does anybody have any questions for the Personnel Committee or Ms. Grant on any of these items?
You did.
Oh, I'm sorry. Lotta seconded it quietly.
Thank you.
We need more inside voices. Thank you very much. Mr. DeQuilla, would you mind?
Sure. Agenda items A1 through 12, including the agenda item for A12. Mr. Gilfillan?
Yes.
Mr. Arnott? Yes. Ms. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Connors?
Yes.
Ms. Cannon?
Yes.
And Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Agenda items passed 6-0.
Fantastic. Thank you. Moving on to Finance and Facilities, Mr. Gilfillan.
Yes, I'd like to move action items B1 through B5 on your regular agenda and B6 on your addendum.
Okay.
Oh, forgot what I was doing. Just a couple thank yous. Chatham Education Foundation grants to Chatham Middle School and Milton Avenue School in the amounts of $2,272 to the Chatham Middle School, the water crisis, how we can help, and then for the Milton Avenue Learners in Motion programs. And then secondly is a target donation to Milton Avenue School in the amount of $254.80 to be used for the purchase of education materials at the discretion of the principal. Thank you very much as usual. And then number 5 is the next generation of our gold-plated bathrooms in Chatham to be implemented.
Excellent. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. DeQuilla or Mr. Gilfillan?
No.
Any questions? Mr. DeQuilla?
Let's go for a second.
Get out of here.
Second. Thank you.
See, we're missing Nani.
No doubt.
Agenda items B1 through B5 and the addendum item B6. Mr. Gilfillan?
Yes.
Mr. Arnott? Yes. Ms. Clark?
Yes, with the exception of B6, I abstain.
Okay. Mr. Connors?
Yes.
Ms. Kenny?
Yes.
And Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Agenda items B1 through B5 pass 6-0. B6 passes 5-0-1.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Curriculum, Ms. Kenny, would you mind?
Yes, I'd like to move action items C1 to C4 on the regular agenda and C5 on the addendum.
Okay.
Second.
There we go.
Wait, what?
Make sure we highlight C3 to the general community, including all children.
Yes.
That's right.
What is the overnight trip on the, on C5, the addendum?
Academic.
It says academic field trip?
Without giving away security information.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't put
That's
you on
right.
the spot. I don't know if there was.
Mr. Gilfillan said they're going to your house overnight.
For debate.
I second that.
Do you want the name of the group that, the
I'm just curious
academic?
where they're going and what it's about. Yeah.
Is it cut off?
No, it's,
Okay, sorry.
no. I mean, as much as you can without divulging
There's an
anything.
academic team going to from the high school going to compete in.
Oh, okay. Okay, then you don't have to
Yes.
publish. Got it. Right. Okay, got it.
We're trying not to
Disclose.
explicitly post where our students will be at what time and, for security reasons.
Yes,
Oh, okay.
got it.
And where they'll not be at certain times.
I'm with you. Okay.
So that was really, and as Mr. Gilfillan pointed out, where the 2 days before Memorial Day weekend will be put back on, as days off on the calendar because of the unused snow days, barring any trees falling and storms between now and Memorial Day. If we have a bad stroke of luck, we would just have to reverse this decision? Okay.
I believe we still have one more day, aside from these two.
Yes, I agree. I think there's still one more day that we still have to play with. But as of right now, this meeting, Thursday and Friday will be off prior to Memorial Day weekend. With no homework. Does anybody have any questions for curriculum? No? No questions? Mr. DeQuilla?
Agenda items C1 through C4, addendum C5. Mr. Gilfillan?
Yes.
Mr. Arnott? Yes. Ms. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Connors?
Yes.
Ms. Kenny?
Yes.
And Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Agenda items passed 6-0.
Thank you very much. There are no policy items this evening, so moving on to board business. Does anybody have any board business that can't possibly wait till May 2nd?
No, but I promise you, we'll be on May 2nd.
May 2nd, you're gearing up?
Geared up.
Excellent.
Would be tonight, except we have to go watch.
We have to go watch basketball.
Any additional?
Mike, I just want to say, I really think it was so important to get those young women in this room tonight, and I think when we think about everything we do in school, and that did not come without a lot of hard work, a lot of natural talent, but those are the people I think sometimes we really need to just take a moment to recognize. So thank you for inviting them, thank you for bringing them to the attention and awarding their efforts here at school.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Excellent presentation by Mr. Walker as well.
Very well done by Mr. Walker, and important to try to find the balance between all of that achievement and staying on a level plane and everything else that we've been talking about all year.
Well, Rich's kids and my kids are working on the other end of that balancing, Peter Donner.
They overcompensate.
They
That's the
overcompensate
problem.
for the young ladies. That's
And
right.
it was girl power, so.
That's right, girl power tonight.
Very well, those people on the other side.
That's funny, Mr. Connor and I have all boys. We have our second opportunity for public commentary. That's it's a long walk. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and signing in.
Yep. I'm Kelly Lufborough, and I live in the borough with 3 kids in the school system.
And you haven't been here in a while, Kelly.
I'm doing my best.
All right, just saying.
I just wanted to give feedback on the volleyball court, just for consideration. I sit on the MAC committee, and having destinations for the kids that are athletic and healthy and outdoors is a huge priority, I think, to find outlets for these kids in Chatham. And I completely understand and respect the neighborhood issue, but I also wonder if you can just think out of the box, is maybe extend it a little bit later on the weekends, to be able to utilize that evening light. And with the noise being an issue, maybe go back to the girl who did her gold award and see if there's another Girl Scout doing an award or something where they could possibly put shrubs or develop that side to minimize the noise, just so you could get another hour on the court if you're thinking of stopping it at 5. That's pretty early for a lot of these high school students that are going over and using the court.
Okay. Excellent. Yep, good point. Destination for kids to go is critical.
Yep. And another exciting kudos to 2 other girls in the high school got accepted to a Girls in Automotive Engineering summer program. That's a competitive scholarship program put on by Chrysler. So I thought that was pretty good.
Very nice. Thank you, Kelly.
Okay, good. Do I have to sign in again? Yes. All right. All right.
Sign the paper twice. Need public record.
I'm just following up on the budget discussion from the last time I was here. I don't know if there's been any other discussion around it, but I did look on the school website, and we have a total of 49 people in the special services counseling technology, special services area, psychologists, social workers, support services, learning disabilities, behavior, speech language pathologists, occupational physical therapists, and school counselors and district coordinators. So I guess I really just wanted to follow up and see if there was any further discussion about these additional positions for the budget for next year.
We had some conversation this evening, primarily about an additional tech support staff, but we did speak about an additional psychologist. You're right, we have about 700 plus students that receive some kind of special services, if you include speech in that mix, and without speech, we have about 15% of our students who are classified. I don't think it's a surprise to anyone that those students, some of them have needs that require resources, and we have child study teams in operation in all of our schools and a robust counseling program. So
I'm sorry, Dr. Lasuz, 15% of the Chatham population is special needs?
classified as special education students,
Okay. And if I look at the
which is
budget...
about in line with the state average, maybe a tiny bit lower.
Okay. So looking at the budget, instruction regular is 22, and instruction special ed is 10, so that's about half, right?
like I just said, there are certain learners that require much greater resources than other learners.
Okay.
And so out-of-district students tend to be the ones that require the greatest financial commitment from us. And students in the district typically require less of a financial commitment.
So, but that's what I was curious. Out-of-district students mean what? Do we have students?
Those are students for whom we pay tuition to attend a school outside of Chatham.
So they come here. They live here and they go out of district for special education. Okay. Okay. And so we have, pardon my ignorance about this, but we have students that go out of district, and then in district we have this special education service with 49 people who service whom?
Well, those 49 people, I mean, I think if we want to go back and forth, it's better to set up a meeting and
Sure,
talk about
okay,
all this.
okay.
But that 49 people, you mentioned school counselors. Obviously, when we're pumping out 2,500 applications for only 300 kids, those are all processed and handled by counselors. So our school counseling staff deals with every student, classified or not classified. We have 4,100 kids. Our child study teams deal with classified students only.
Right.
Our student assistance counselors deal with everybody. We have some students who only require speech services but are not classified as having any kind of learning disability, so they require certain services. We have other students who might have occupational therapy or physical therapy as part of their program, but don't necessarily have other types of services. So it all depends. We run the whole gamut and spectrum of services and the delivery of services to students.
Okay. So why would we need another psychologist? I mean, I'm just going to end with that question, and I'll follow up, and hopefully you and I can meet or something. But I guess I'm going to go back to my original question from 2 weeks ago and say, what's the sort of, identify the need for the additional counselor, or psychologist rather, and the additional trainer. Like, I just, from what I've seen on the school website, we've got resources, and so I'm just asking the question.
Sure. So, I mean, and like I said a couple weeks ago, when I started at Chatham High School with 800 students in the building, we had one school psychologist. We have 1,200 students in the building now. We'll be over 1,300 students in a couple of years. We still only have one school psychologist. We have multiple instances. We have multiple instances each year in which we have to send students out for psychiatric evaluations, sometimes involving suicide ideation. And the principal and administration at the high school, as well as Dr. Vindalia, our other assistant superintendent, all have requested that we give consideration to hiring an additional school psychologist to help some of those students that are in crisis.
All right, but we have psychologists on staff, and I understand that these are requests that are made. So how do we end up making the decision?
Well, that's up to the board to determine when we review all of the budget requests and we look at the resources that we have available and the maximum allowable tax increase. That's what the finance committee discusses when it meets and determines what the budget should be.
Okay.
And like Mr. Gilfillan said, by the next board meeting, we'll have to adopt the budget and the board will have to make some final determinations about those positions.
And are there any way that we can use any of these resources that we have already, as opposed to, I mean, I guess just, as a parent and a taxpayer, I want to, can I ask any member of the board if they knew that we have all these resources already within the schools, and can they be leveraged, to meet the requests of the principals and the other people who are requesting 8 additional positions? Do we know this? Can we leverage that? Do we need addition,
They're leveraged now. They're leveraged to the hilt.
How do I know that?
If you ask a question, you have to give me an opportunity to answer it.
Great, go ahead.
So I'm going to speak. Please don't interrupt. If you do, I'm going to stop answering it. We have, of the 4,100 kids, if we have 39, I have 39 special services, that's 105 students that each counselor might be working with. So you asked the question, in my opinion, it's not enough. We need to help get additional support We don't have it in the budget, unfortunately. It's not currently in the budget. Is it a need and a want and a desire? Yes. It's not currently in the budget.
Can I speak?
Excuse me?
Can I speak?
Sure thing. You asked a question. You said, do we know that we have 39 support staff? The answer is absolutely yes. We certainly know the support staff in the district.
No, I said 49.
We know the support staff in the district. I mean, I don't know if you're trying, you know.
I'm asking if we're leveraging the staff
Yes.
that we have.
Yes.
And then I'm asking for backup information and data to support your ask or whoever's ask.
It's not in the budget. We're not asking for it this year.
Well, then why was it brought up as part of the budget presentation that we need these additional positions?
It's a consideration. It's currently not in the
Okay.
budget.
So so between now and May 2nd, you know, do the parent.
Personal opinion. Right now, when we had 800 kids, we had one psychologist. Now we have 1,300 kids, we have potentially two. We're not guaranteed, potentially two. Do we think that's enough for that? The answer is no. So I think our people are over-leveraged as is and need additional help. We just don't have the resources to give it to them. So in our opinion, is one for 800 or two versus 650 makes sense from a leverage perspective, from a financial perspective, and from an efficacy perspective. So are we under-leveraged? No. Are people, do they need help? Yes.
But where's the justification for that? I'd like to know how many students need these services. And I will point out, we have Project Community Pride, we have, you know, a self-help group that meets at the church. There are other resources, so
Self-help at the church is completely different than kids who have educational needs where they require special learning tools and resources.
Okay.
I appreciate your concern as a taxpayer and not wanting to pay more taxes, but at the same time, there has to be a certain level of trust for the expertise of the staff who's paid to and who provides the results that gives our children the success rate that they have. Why would you doubt that the staff in front of you is overpaying to take care of special needs kids, which I take it you probably don't have since you're up criticizing that cost?
Pardon me, I'm not criticizing special needs at all. What I'm questioning is what I'm asking is the data to back up the request for more staff. That's all.
Can I just say one thing? Mike, when you look at a school psychologist, they wear many hats. We're not just talking about a school psychologist sitting in one-on-one counseling. School psychologists are required to do certain testing elements of a child study team responsibility for students who come up for annual review or every 3 years. So when you're looking at the special ed population, these are some people that can only do certain required tests. So much of the time of a school psychologist in a school, whether it's here or in the school where I work or in schools across the state, spend a lot of their time testing students, not counseling them. And so I think we have to look at, if we really broke down the hours where they're doing counseling versus testing, I can justify, in my mind, we need more.
Well, Ms. Clark, you actually hit right on the point that I'm asking is, I, as a parent in the schools, I'm not privy to that information. How much time do these people spend doing that? So when I look at, take it from my perspective too, when I look at, and I go on the website and I see that we have all this staff, and I say, why do we need another one? But I have no reason behind why we need more. I'm not privy to that.
Numbers of students. It's number of cases.
Okay,
it's
well,
number of
you know,
testing. I'm just saying.
President
I'm
Weber.
not answering on behalf of the board. I'm not answering on behalf of the administration. I'm telling.
Answer 2 weeks ago that we used to have 800, now we have 1,300.
So it's basically just enrollment?
When your enrollment goes up, your special ed enrollment goes up. Numbers are numbers. When you're looking at 15%, you're looking at 15% of a different number.
Okay.
That hasn't changed. So I think what I'm just trying to explain to you, we're not just talking about a school psychologist sitting counseling students. We're talking about school psychologists who are required to do testing that take a long time, that have to write reports that go with those tests. And where we're lacking is that counseling portion. We could use support in the counseling arena.
And it's not in the budget.
And right now, it's not there anyway, so we're unfortunately unable to do it. So I'm hoping I'm trying to answer your question.
Right,
from
and
my-
I'm still confused by it, I'm
Okay,
sorry.
then I
We get that you disagree with the need
I don't
for
disagree,
additional-
I want clarification. I'm not saying
It's
that
not in the budget, though.
But even so, I think we can't give the clarification because we don't have the job descriptions of every single individual in the school district. So maybe Mike or Vin could get more specific details
Yeah, I'm
as
not,
to what.
right. I'm not disagreeing, I'm asking.
I'm not saying you are. I'm
Right.
just saying that I tried to give you my best explanation, but I think, this director of special education and the superintendent could probably give you more detailed specifics. But our school psychologists are overworked right now.
We've heard from 4 or 5 people that it's not in the budget. If it was up to me, it would be in the budget. I'm a proponent of it. I think we need it, and I've asked the administration on a couple of occasions to look for money somewhere, however we can. Can I hear anyone, please? I'm sorry.
What have you. I think it is needed.
Okay.
I understand your
I'm not here to,
No,
I'm sorry.
Let me finish now.
I'm
I understand your confusion because I think part of it is lack of information on your
Correct.
part. And I believe you see a job description and you see 49 people, and I'll take your word for it that your math is good. But I think that's a broad brush, and those people do a lot of activities. They have a lot of responsibilities. The student enrollment has gone up. The pressures on the students have gone up today. I mean, the kids today are under tremendous amount of pressures. And we just right now don't have the resources we would like to have. So I, for one, am a proponent of getting an additional psychiatrist because I think it would help immensely. And it would, if you have one person doing that, then 2 other people who were pitching in can do other things. So there is absolutely need on a number of spectrums. Also, I'm a proponent, since I now have the soapbox, of an additional trainer. That has been a beef of mine for the last 7 years, since, or however long I've been on the board. We need another trainer. That doesn't mean we need another full-time trainer, but if you have multiple activities going on in the fall and in the spring, just because those are 2 seasons that we have sports, at Haas and at Cougar, and then maybe the baseball team is playing at Shunpike. If somebody gets hurt, you need a trainer there. Right now, we only have 1 trainer. I was at a lacrosse game 3 years ago, and there was a game at Haas, and there was a boys' game at Cougar, and at the end of the boys' game, one of the players got hurt, was leveled, and we thought he was paralyzed from the neck down. We didn't have a trainer. Thank God we had a parent who was a doctor. So that is an absolute need, the trainer. So there are reasons for it, but I think to help you understand better, which I think if you understand it better, you'll have a better appreciation from where the board's coming from, is if you schedule that meeting with Dr. L'Souza, and then he can explain to you the workload and probably the job description of what these people do. And as one of the board members mentioned, it's caseloads. They're dealing in, and some of these issues are so time-consuming for one child. So you can't look at it in a quantity analysis. It's more of a qualitative. So a couple of students may need more time. So we're going to have the resources there. And I'm sorry. No, I'm not sorry. I'm a huge proponent of somehow finding in this budget to hire the psychologist, and the trainer. And if we can get it, great, because I think it borderlines want and need. If it's a need, that's one thing. It's a want. I think it's pretty darn close from a want to a need. So I'm sorry, I've said my piece.
But your point
No
is
need
well
to
taken.
apologize. I would just like to say,
Let's go, Georgetown.
Mr. Connors, it's more about the information behind
Understood.
identifying the need. It's not about opinion. I'm not
I wasn't
up
taking
here.
your opinion. You clearly just didn't know enough, and
Right.
I think if you
I would
meet
like
with Dr. L'Souza, you'll be...
But I think in general, for any parent to say, if you're looking at things that are going to be added to the budget, they have questions as to why. And I think,
And you know what they can do, Libby?
what's that?
They can come here.
We're trying to do that.
Well,
Another,
right now, I'm
you know
only
what,
seeing
Rich, to your point, what a great way to achieve that would be to send out every Friday before the Monday night meetings, the agenda, and say, we have a board meeting tonight, please come. Thank you.
Just for your information, the agenda does get posted to the website
does.
every Friday afternoon prior to a board meeting.
It does. We brought this up before. for it, but to send out a blast email, so to remind people it's on a Monday night would be very helpful.
Thank you. Rich, I just want to emphasize your point that some of it is not a numbers analysis, it's qualitative. It could be one kid that needs help, and so be it.
Jane Devlin. If it was up to me, the psychologist would be in the budget too, and I'm being somewhat redundant from what Mr. Connors said. He sort of beat me to the punch, but I still do want to go on record to say I think it's important to realize of the special ed support staff, they may be leveraged, but they don't just switch hats. The speech therapist isn't the psychologist, and the psychologist, for example, isn't the physical therapist. So I don't think we could merely look at the numbers, 49 or whatever that number is, and I'll admit I don't have that number, so I'm going to defer to the previous speaker and assume her number 49 was accurate. You can't just say you have 49 support staff or clinical staff and that should be enough. And just by what we were saying, if we had one psychologist for 800 students, and now that number almost doubled, 1,300 and probably increasing, it's just very logical to say at minimum you would need another psychologist. Because the school psychologist should not be considered just for the special education students or students that have any kind of IEP, because as Mr. Connors pointed out, and Ms. Clark as well, it's the number of problems that are increasing and the intensity of the problems with the student population. I don't think we're unique in Chatham. I think we're very proactive in meeting our students' needs, but it's just the way life is these days. So you have more intense problems, more intense challenges, and what you want to do is keep the kids as healthy as possible, and some of the kids that maybe are manifesting some additional needs, be proactive and meet them before they reach a critical or crisis level. So for those reasons, I want to go on record in saying I would support having the school psychologist. I know it's not in the budget now, and I do think the board members again showed insight into trying to explain the mindset behind. And the last thing I wanted to say is Dr. LaSousa presents at every PTO meeting the budget in advance, and he stands there and says he doesn't rush anyone. Is there any questions? Do you want to know why something is going on, why we're doing this, why we're asking for a trainer, for not a trainer, a psychologist, not a psychologist? So even if you're unable to attend the board meetings, you have an opportunity at the PTO meetings to go and ask Dr. LaSousa and a board representative any and all questions, including personnel matters, at that budget. And I attend those PTO meetings, and I don't think you have to just have a student in the school. You could, the presentation's the same. So if you can't make, if you have a student, for example, in the middle school, but you can't make that PTO meeting, come to the high school, or come to Milton Avenue, or come to Southern. So we have all those opportunities to ask any questions about any parts of this budget that's coming forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Devlin. Okay, we're going to close the, we have no executive session? No. No, I make a motion to close the public meeting.
Second.
Second, all those in favor? You, Rich and Matt, okay.
I know, I saw the... Good night, Peter. What I want to know was... Yeah, could you please? Yeah, I'll go in here. It was great watching you guys play, and I was away last weekend, but I'll definitely be there next time you're out. All right, thank you.